Hey guys, continuing the rating climb. We are white 1027, and we start off with an aborted game. Let's try that again. So here we go. One of the things that if you watched the last video, you noticed is that around 1,000, like I said, players start to play a little bit better, and we don't see as many mistakes. About 1 to 2 significant mistakes each game is kind of what I would expect. You actually played this exact opening last time. Okay, and I mentioned the move queen to f6 before. Very surprising move if you haven't seen it, but the point is that we are threatening checkmate, and we will retake this knight later. So we're not recapturing right away. And I think this is actually the exact same game that we played in the last video. So one of the things I mentioned as well is you can capture now with the D pawn, and you don't have to worry about the queen trade. And so that's a very good move to throw in there because you avoid the queen trade. And also notice white has created some weaknesses along these dark squares. So I'm definitely trying to pay attention to that. A3 is a very weird move because you can't even play b4. You lose your rook. So I'm not really sure. I mean, yes, it stops bishop b4 check, but other than that, I really don't understand that move. I'm going to play bishop to e6, controlling this diagonal before white has the option to put... Okay, and our opponent is blundering the rook. So I'm going to do a quick check to make sure there's no weird queen trap or anything, but I don't believe so. And this looks like it's going to be a quick game. Now they played b4. Yeah, I really don't know what's going on here. So we could take the knight, which would ultimately be a trade. We could move the bishop first. We could bring the bishop in here. We could even slide the rook over, gaining a tempo on the queen, which is kind of what I'm looking at doing first. Yeah, I think I will do that. Just trying to activate as many pieces as I can, as quickly as I can. And so I can do this move with tempo, forces white to deal with the queen, and then we can continue and see what we want to do. If we want to take, okay, we can't take that anymore. So it looks like I'm going to be moving my bishop most likely. I wonder if I can actually go here, taking advantage of the pin on the queen. That looks like a pretty strong move. I'm just going to check, make sure tactically that it works, and I think it does. So here we go. Bishop to e3, and white is in trouble already. Okay, so this looks like it gives me the opportunity to do a big trade. We could take here, we could trade off the queen, and because we are up the rook, I'm very happy with that. So I will go ahead and just trade everything. All right, let's continue developing, and still looking for the opportunity to trade because I'm up the rook. And, you know, one of the things about those significant mistakes that you'll see at this level, even if our opponent were to play a perfect game from here, I would probably still be able to win because that extra rook is so powerful. So those 1 or 2 big mistakes, here's another one, but even just with 1 or 2 big mistakes in a game, that's pretty significant. And that's why you're gonna notice a huge difference when we get up to the 13, 14, 1500 rated, to where those mistakes start to go away. All right, let's play another game. That was very quick. Okay, so we have a Sicilian. I'm going to stick with knight to f3 and go with my typical bishop b5 check lines that I like to play a lot. Knight to d7. So the idea here is that black wants to play a6 and keep the bishop pair. So that's a pretty strong move, but what I like to do is play d4. And when I play d4, I'm going to recapture with the queen. Now, normally I wouldn't do this because a knight might hop out to c6 and chase my queen away. But notice where the knight has been moved to. So there is no knight that can go to c6. So queen takes d4 makes a lot more sense. Okay, and by the way, if you're wondering about this fork, there's always going to be knight to c3 in this position, which blocks the check from the queen and defends the bishop at the same time, so black can't actually win a piece. Okay, I'm going to play knight to c3, just developing, and then we'll follow up bishop to g5. But what I was saying is the queen here on d4 is actually a nice aggressive square for the queen. Controls a lot of the board, and one of the drawbacks is that you lose time with knight c6, which I don't have to worry about. There is e5, and this is a trade-off for black. You gain a tempo and you gain some space, but you create what's called a backward pawn. So this is a backward pawn because the pawn over here is gone. This pawn has now been advanced forward, and essentially this is a weakness. It could be a target for me. So I'm going to keep an eye as this game goes on how to attack that. Now I'm just checking, is there a tactic here? I can sacrifice that because the pin, but black can very easily play bishop e7, and I think they're doing just fine. There is knight to d5, but then the trade, I think black is able to castle in time, and it doesn't look good enough for me. So I'm just going to drop back to d3. Now, why am I going here? I want to keep the pressure on this pawn. I don't want to block my bishop in, and I don't really want to block my ability to castle queenside or connect my rooks. And so this is really the only move. Could have also went to a4, which would have had some merit as well. Namely that it would pin this pawn here, so like this wouldn't be a threat. But since I didn't do that, I think I will go ahead and give up the bishop. Now I could try to keep the bishop, but after b5, I go back. The knight's going to hop into c5. That doesn't look good to me. Looks like black's getting a whole bunch of space, a lot of moves for free. And so because of that, I'm going to just go ahead and trade. Try not to fall too behind in tempo. All right, let's play bishop g5, pinning the knight. Of course, we're going to see bishop e7. But my game plan is going to be to take advantage of this weakness right here. So I can castle queenside and line up the queen and the rook. I could castle kingside as well. Kingside is a little bit safer probably for my king, only because of the half-open c-file. This is a little bit more aggressive and it immediately puts the rook there. So the other thing I can do is actually go ahead and take this right now and follow it up with knight to h4. And think about maybe bringing my knight in here to attack this. Now, right now, the bishop is controlling, so maybe that's not the greatest. If I take here, there's also knight to d5. So yeah, lots of moves here. Basically, these three options. I think I will go ahead and just castle kingside. I'm just going to wait and see what black's going to do. And this seems like maybe the safest place for my king right now. So I think we'll just do that. Okay, so queen to b6. Let's identify what's the threat. Not worried about this. Obviously, this is a threat, although it's not a huge one because I could play rook b1. The queen would have to move, and then bam, my rook comes down to the 7th rank, which looks pretty nice. I'm not super concerned with that. I might actually even allow that. I'm thinking now of taking here and then following it up with bringing the knight in. And I believe the queen's going to have to go back to defend the bishop. And I think I like the way that that trade looks. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and do that. And the point here is that if, okay, this way is, yeah, that's an option, but I'm still thinking about this. I'm also just thinking about bringing my rook over and attacking here right away. I could still play knight to d5. There's a fork, so the queen would probably have to go to one of these two squares. I could trade. Yeah, that does look pretty good, doesn't it? All right, let's go ahead and bring the knight in. We have a lot of threats here that black has to be careful of. Like, for example, they can't grab this pawn or they get forked. If they don't defend the bishop, then when they recapture, it opens up the king side, so they probably won't want to castle there. Creates some doubled pawns. And long term, I'm liking the pawn structure. Okay, black misses this. So here we go again. You see these relatively big mistakes that pop up every so often during the game. And if you're paying attention and you take advantage of those, that can be pretty significant. So I am going to do that. Go for the fork and pick up the rook. And now when black recaptures it, we have a couple of options here. I think I'm going to just get this rook into the game immediately and attack here. I could also play rook to b1. And after, let's just say this, then my rook could invade on the 7th rank. That also looks pretty good. And our opponent's not even going to... Okay. Well, yeah, I think... I mean, it makes sense why they resign. After, like, rook here, black's going to have a hard time. Let's just say they try to defend. Then I can play maybe rook to b1. And I have a lot of threats here that black has to deal with. Now, I think black could play on. Like, it's not as bad as they thought, because they did get a pawn and a bishop for the rook, which is not the end of the world. But maybe I can relocate my knight, something like this. Anyway, let's play another game. Those were pretty quick ones. We'll play e4. And I guess we'll just kind of stick with some of the same openings. Okay, we see a Petrov's. So I'm just going to, what am I going to play against this? I haven't really studied this too much. I think there are some cool gambits. I just can't remember them right now. All right, so since I can't remember, I'm going to just go with the solid move. Okay, is this a Stafford gambit? Yeah. So rather than accept this and go into something that maybe my opponent has studied or knows more about than I do, which very well could be true since I don't know much about the Stafford gambit, I'm just going to look for a solid move to play here. And I could just retreat and allow black to recapture, but I think what I'll do instead is play the move d4. And I'm just trying to play a good solid move that controls the center and lets my pieces out right away. I'm also trying to play a move that I don't believe is the main line. And this is especially important when you're playing somebody who's evenly matched with you, like your similar skill level. If you play into an opening that they know really, really well, and you don't know that well, you're setting yourself up to have a difficult game. So, like, clearly my opponent wants to play the Stafford Gambit. So rather than just, all right, let's just play the most obvious move, take the knight and see what happens, I'm going to play something a bit weird. And you see they pause a little bit here. They probably are like, what's this d4 move? And now we're kind of just playing a normal game of chess again, right? Which is really what you want to try to do, okay? So the knight's on e4. I'm wondering, can I maybe attack that somehow and take advantage of that? Like queen to d5. The knight looks like it's going to be a little hard to defend. Could also play bishop e3. What I don't want to do is, walk into something here. But maybe bishop c4, bishop c5. Maybe we can play queen d5. It's going to get pretty tricky. But I'm threatening checkmate. If this happens, I don't care. I have checkmate. If the I play king here. I still have the checkmate threat. Yeah, I think that's actually not a bad move. Now, there's also queen h4. But I think we can play g3. If this takes, we could take... Recap. That actually looks like a good move for black. Queen h4. So if I play bishop c4, I'm a little bit afraid of queen h4. Maybe I could play queen f3 to defend. What would... Oh, yeah, maybe queen f3 is a good move there. Okay. So definitely thinking about bishop c4 if I want to get kind of tricky. Also, maybe queen d5 is an idea. Bishop e3 would be kind of like the safe move, like just defend this diagonal, develop a piece. Let's go ahead and play bishop c4. It looks like it's going to get pretty wild. But I'm okay with that. I think mixing it up makes a lot of sense. And so let's go for bishop c4. But when you play these e4, e5 openings, there's always going to be the possibility of tactics on these squares, especially since I have the option to take, black has the option to take, both queens can come out, both bishops, right, can come out. So, it might not look like there's much going on in this position, but trust me, there is a lot of tactics that might pop up here. Okay, we're going to see some right now. So black's going for this. There's an idea that I've seen before that I'm familiar with in a similar position. I think it's slightly different, but one of the gambits that I teach in my course, I talk about this move queen to d5. And the point is you're basically creating a triple fork on these pieces. Yes, you are giving up this pawn. But if the knight takes, like I already mentioned, there's checkmate. If the bishop takes, I'm going to simply move my king, and black still has the problem that all three pieces are being attacked. Very difficult to deal with all of those threats. So with that in mind, I think I am going to play queen to d5. I believe in the line that I've showed this, the knights are still here and here. So I'm just trying to think through, like, does the fact that the knights have already been traded change anything? I don't think it does. So I am going to play queen to d5. And queen to h4 might actually be a move for black too, which is going to get really wild. Because even though they allow this, it's not checkmate anymore. They can tuck the king on d8. Then they have the assistance of the queen and the bishop and the knight. And it's going to get real wild. So we'll see if our opponent goes for that line. But I think on queen h4, I might have just g3 is what I'm thinking. And normally you would want to sacrifice the knight here, but you can't really do that. I could actually just take either way. Queen's defending the rook, queen's defending the bishop. So on queen h4, g3, I think black would maybe have to play like queen here. Yeah, it's still kind of tricky, actually. It's still kind of tricky. I could take a check. King goes here. I could play f3, forking those guys. Bishop could come down with check. I probably would just move. And I think I would be okay. Still pretty tricky. So definitely queen h4 is a tricky move. But I think this should be good for me. It's going to be just a question of can I see and calculate all the lines and play the correct moves. Okay, so they do go for one of the kind of obvious moves, bishop takes check. I believe both of these are good for me. I don't think it necessarily matters, but I am going to think through a little bit. I feel like maybe king f1, my king's a bit safer. Although sometimes on e2, it's useful that you can bring the rook to the f file. So yeah, advantage of going to e2 is this is an option. Disadvantage, I'm potentially open to a check from bishop here. Advantage of king f1, obviously I'm shielded from that, but then I can't play rook f1. So kind of a question of which one do I want to go for. Yeah, I'll play king e2. And here you can see the problem for black. They have to stop the checkmate. They have to. But they also have a knight that's hanging. And if the knight moves somewhere, then the bishop's hanging. And so there's just too many threats, and black can't really deal with all three at the same time. That's kind of the problem with this line for black. So they go knight to d6, which is interesting because if I take the bishop, there is a fork, and they would take my bishop and get their piece back. But I don't have to take the bishop. I can simply just take the knight. And again, I have a checkmate threat, and I'm still threatening the bishop, and so I'm still getting a piece. The only thing is, does black have any queen moves that are going to scare me? I don't believe so. Like queen f6, it's not a problem. I would simply just trade everything, and I'm happily up a piece. I don't really see any other moves, so I will go ahead and take it. Very tricky position, and what you'll find in super tricky positions like this is a lot of times 1,000, 1,100 rated players have a bit of trouble just navigating everything, and you see they'll sometimes make, moves that kind of make sense, but they don't quite calculate everything, which is what we see here, okay? So it looks like I'm actually going to get 2 pieces for this. Now, it's not totally, easy for me because my king is kind of exposed. There's going to be queen f6 and queen h4, but if you look around, black has no other pieces really to pair with that queen, except maybe a rook on e8. But other than that, I don't really have much to worry about. So I am going to go ahead and take the bishop, understanding that when the queen comes out, I'm going to have to figure out a way to defend. But I think we can do that relatively easily. So let's think through this. Queen to f3, obvious move. The issue is, what about the follow-up checks? Both of these would fork my king and bishop, okay? So I don't want to lose my bishop like that. Although I could, and I would still be ahead of piece. So if I can't find anything else, I could default to something like this, just giving back the piece to get my pieces out. Okay, that's one option. But I would like to hold on to my pieces if possible. So let's see what else we can find. What about king to g1? The queen going to go. I don't really see a lot of squares for the queen. I see rook to e8, but I could deal with that pretty easily. Maybe bishop to d2. This diagonal is the weak diagonal, but black's bishop's already gone. Queen can't go there immediately. These are all defended, so b6 is kind of the only square that I have to watch out for, where I could get into trouble. But even if that happened, I could still slide over to f1. So I'm feeling pretty good about king to g1. I guess I could also go here, allow the check, and try to run this way. That looks more risky to me, even though it might still be okay. So with all that said, I think I am going to play king to g1. I'm just going to do a quick check again, a blunder check. Make sure, the obvious move, rook to e8, I have bishop to d2, which looks like it defends everything. And all these squares would be defended. Yeah. All right, so we'll go king to g1. Now, I don't love it because my rook's stuck in the corner. But we are ahead 2 pieces. Just need to find a safe place for the king, finish the development, and we can, even if we have to play something like h4 to get the rook out, this way, that's fine. Okay, so we do see rook to e8. Clearly, that's the threat. So I think bishop to d2 makes the most sense. But bishop to d2 allows this. Just notice that. If I try to get clever here, the queen actually could come in. Didn't really catch that before. So let's see if we have any other options here. What about the knight? And when the rook comes down, we play knight to f1. Bishop is defending. I think that would be fine. A little bit more risky than I wanted to go for. I could also play something like queen d2. That's kind of retreating. I don't really love that. I think maybe I will go with knight to d2. So let's just check. Does the rook have any other moves? Can't go here. The queen can't really come in at that point. And so, okay, I think that's fine. Let's play knight to d2. And I'm keeping an eye on the time. I don't want to get too low on time before the game is over. So I'm going to go ahead and play this. Knight to f1 is the move after the rook comes in. We can check this one after the game. It'll be interesting to see what Stockfish says as far as defending after the queen check. Like, what was the best move? Was this the best idea? Or was there something else? And I am considering this trade. And the reason I'm considering it is because I'm already ahead 2 pieces. Even if I sacrifice 1 back here and get a pawn for it, I'll still be ahead a piece, and I'll guarantee a queen trade, which means all of a sudden my king, I don't have to worry. So, if my time gets low enough, that is the option that I'll go for. Because leaving a queen and a rook on the board like this with no time on the clock, I could potentially blunder. And so sometimes, okay, let's play knight to f1 like we talked about. Sometimes the best thing to do is just, even if you have to sacrifice a piece when you're way ahead, if you can simplify the game, get rid of the queen, get to an easy position to play, that might make the most sense. So I'm definitely kind of keeping that idea in the back of my mind. But now I'm actually threatening bishop g5. Yeah, so c6. Okay, so here, do I want to play this? What else could I move the queen to? Queen to f3. Queen to f3 looks pretty good too. Oh no, but then queen d4, bishop to e3. What's happening there? What is happening there? I'm going to lose this, but then I take the rook. So that's a pretty wild line. Okay, queen here, check, bishop e3. I think it works. If he sacks this, I take with the bishop and I'm fine. He takes here, I take with the queen and I'm fine. Takes here, I take the queen and I'm fine. Okay, I think that works. Very tricky, but I'm going to play it. Play queen to f3. And I am getting low on time, so that means I can't do any more of those long calculations. Okay, so that was kind of like my last long calculation for this game. Now I'm at a minute. I just have to play quickly. Now, I believe this basically this basically should be ending the game here. Bishop to e3. And it's going to simplify something after here because I have the rook under attack, the queen under attack. Okay, this one, I just take the rook. Yes, and so now we're fine. Black has no more threats, and it's just a question of how do I win the game without losing on time. So a queen trade would make my life easy. Also, just an attack on the king. Black only has the queen to defend. This bishop is stuck. The rook is stuck, right? And so I'm looking at an idea like this. Okay. I'm going to go here just to totally, surround my king. There's no risk of checks or checkmate or anything. And I'm threatening checkmate. Not an easy one for black to stop. Check, check, checkmate. There's a little tactic. I've seen this one before. Simply slide the queen over and we come in for the checkmate. If it goes here, that's checkmate. If it goes here, that's a mate in 2. All right, so good game to our opponent. Let's actually check that one and see if we defended correctly or not. All right, 83-66. Okay, and let's go check because I'm curious myself what the best way to defend was. Okay, so yeah, so d4 was an okay move. It wasn't the best move, but I avoided the main line, and that was important. We already kind of talked about it. Okay, let me go here. c4. So it doesn't work in this case. So that's interesting. So let's see. I'm going to go to the analysis board here, and what was the best move? So the best way to do it was actually sacrificing with the bishop first. Interesting. So what was black's best response? Queen to h4. And I was planning on playing g3. Bishop takes. If I move, queen to h5. Aha. See, remember I mentioned that the line that I was familiar with, the knights weren't traded. It was like a different line. Maybe that's why this is not good, because in this line, I don't have knight f3 to block like I normally would. Maybe. I don't know. I could be wrong. Interesting. Okay. Anyway, we get this. King to f1 was the better option according to the engine. Okay. Then our opponent kind of blundered the knight. Okay, we got the 2 pieces. And let's see, what was the best way to defend? Yeah, I didn't love that. It says king g3. Which, from a human standpoint, I'm not playing king g3. Yeah, king g1 was also up there. Okay, so we basically played it correctly, except for those mistakes early on. That was fine. And then, nice little tactic here, bishop e3. Basically, the problem is all of black's major pieces are under attack, and however they decide to deal with it, if they take the rook, they lose the queen. If they, like in the game, they did this. Look here. My phone is ringing. I need to take this one. So I'll end it here, but that's basically all I was going to say. Stay sharp, play smart, take care.